This episode of AU Manufacturing Conversations is a session recorded at our recent Spotlight on Scaling Up seminar held on June 25 at University of Technology, Sydney. A big thanks to everybody who bought a ticket, everybody who presented, and to the sponsors who made it all possible. BDO in Australia, the Australian Business Growth Fund, and the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre. Morning everyone. I'll begin by respectfully recognising the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which we hold this event. For as long as I've had the happy job of writing about manufacturing, which is about 13 years, I've been able to exercise my love of the little guy, the underdog. As with the rest of the Australian economy, the manufacturing part of it is overwhelmingly made up of small and smaller than small businesses. After I met a few manufacturing leaders early on, I noticed that they were often chuffed that someone, even an obscure dude from an obscure publication, would take an interest in what they do. That made me chuffed too. Regularly, the company in question hadn't grown to the point where the owner had allowed his or herself to delegate various day-to-day tasks. If I'd email the company, the owner would often get back directly rather than send a comms person to handle this or that question about why they do this or that thing. It seemed charming and grassrootsy and fun. The flip side was that very few of those manufacturers, even the really impressive ones, would outgrow their boutique beginnings. Having a small team means that you're generally awesomely busy with business as usual. Being awesomely busy means that you don't have the luxury of thinking a few years ahead or travelling the world to keep up with the state-of-the-art at trade expos, finding out about scientific or engineering or management research that might be applicable to your enterprise. And as the saying goes, you've got to spend money to make money. Without much money, it might be hard to pay for decent marketing to get your name out there, or to replace an asset you've been sweating for a while, or make any number of other worthwhile investments in service of progress. Instead of finding an escalator, cash-deprived manufacturers often stay stuck on the treadmill. Scale is the issue of today. It is even intertwined with the acknowledged need to lift productivity. If we want to become a more productive nation, there are worse places to look than being a scale-up nation. A fellow recently pointed out to me that there's some interesting OECD research on the subject. I'll quote from it here. Productivity tends to increase with firm size, as large firms can benefit from increasing returns to scale. For the OECD nations observed, in manufacturing, the productivity gap between large and smaller firms was on average more pronounced than in the business economy as a whole, reflecting returns to scale from capital-intensive production. I'm no economist, so I can't talk at length about the implications of improving one metric by a certain amount and what that might mean for some other metric elsewhere. I will just say that, as our recent Australia's 50 Most Innovative Manufacturers campaign showed, there appears to be a healthy amount of promising startups emerging right now. We need more of them to reach international customers, but stay grounded in Australia, or at least active here. In the last few years, we've seen a number of high-tech manufacturers get nurtured here, only to relocate themselves and their production jobs when it gets to the really important phase. But let's focus on the positive now, and on the fact that we can enjoy this morning's incredible program. It's been made possible by our friends at BDO Australia, the Australian Business Growth Fund, and the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre. Please put your hands together for these very nice folks. And to continue with the positive, because that's what we want to do, it gives me real joy to introduce a wonderful example that one industry-changing innovation can be the foundation of not just a charming micro-business, but a world-beating, fully grown-up enterprise. TNA Solutions was founded by our next guests in 1982. Nowadays, it has a headcount over 600, offices in 30 countries, and carries out a huge amount of high-value added manufacturing in Australia. TNA was last year's Australian Exporter of the Year in the manufacturing category, and founders Alf and Nadia Taylor were recognised as members of the Order of Australia in 2019 for their other passion, philanthropic work through the Nadia and Alf Taylor Foundation. Please welcome the inspirational duo behind TNA Solutions. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you for inviting us, by the way.
I'm so happy that you said yes. And that goes for many other people that we're going to be speaking to today, but you guys especially.
Thank you.
Let's, for context and storytelling's sake, go back to the very early days. I read that you both migrated to Australia by coincidence in 1966, and you both ended up also by coincidence working in the snack food industry. Tell me about how your paths first crossed.
Well, we fell in love among the potato chips. While they were being fried, he threw me a chip. I threw him two back ladies just so that he knew where he stood, you know. But we met at work at Arnott Snack Foods back in those days. We're talking 43 years ago.
Wonderful. And tell me about your roles at the time.
So I was PA to the managing director, and Alf started as a packaging engineer and then worked his way up to manufacturing manager.
Righto. So I mentioned earlier that the company got started off the back of a breakthrough invention. That all sounds simple and elegant enough, but it never is. Tell me about that big idea, the Robag, and, coming up with that during the engineering consultancy days and a little more sort of putting some meat on the bones of this story.
I was when I left university, I joined Arnott and I got experience with a lot of machinery, packaging machinery and that type of thing. And when we set up the company, well, it was Nadia's idea to set up the company. And my comment was, that's a fantastic idea, Nadia. Have you got any idea what do you think we should actually do? So Nadia said, well, you're a bloody engineer, think of something, do something, So I came up with an idea, literally, and the first time I drew it was on the back of a beer coaster.
After several beers.
And it was after several beers, so boy, was it messy. And I didn't keep the beer coaster, but I had the idea and I kind of knew in my head how this thing would work. And we tried to get companies interested in the concept, because essentially the concept, without going through the details, the concept, if it worked, should run at 2 to 3 times faster than anything that had ever been designed or produced. The big problem for us was trying to get anybody to believe this. Boy, it was they just didn't believe that would work. And in the end, we managed to talk one of our customers, not talk them into it, but they had confidence in us and they actually helped us. And it was actually Smith Chips Australia. So we were doing work for them as consultants and we'd done pretty good work and they had enough confidence in us that they funded the building of the first machine and we put it into production. And after a few minor problems, took about 2 years, but we fixed them. And then the machine went and kind of...
That was the start. I think there's more questions.
Okay.
We only have half an hour, darling.
Right, okay.
Okay.
The initial problem you were trying to solve with the Robag, it was throughput with packaging. Is that correct? What was the speed at the time at which things could be packaged with a VFFS?
Sorry, he can't hear you. So what was the packaging speeds at the time when we came
what were you building on?
up with the idea?
So there was about 22 suppliers of packaging machines all over the world, none in Australia. They were all running at 55 cycles a minute, and our speed was 120.
What's that up to today, if I can ask?
Sorry?
What's it up to today?
We do up to about 200.
Bags a minute. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 200 bags per minute, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we're talking early days stuff and setting out. Nadia, a question for you. Did you always sort of envision it as being a global business, but one with a family ownership?
Always family ownership, yes. Never thought of, bringing in partners. And global, yes, it's sort of, we thought, we'll export, but never ever did I expect the success we've achieved together and the team of people that work with us, They're amazing. Yeah.
Going global and exporting, it all seems simple enough, but I understand the first few years of trying to do that were, they were not without their problems. Tell me about some of the difficulties and some of the things that happened between getting this invention off the ground, getting a customer base, and I think it was 10 years almost between dreaming up the Robag and setting up in Birmingham your first overseas office.
Yes. So as Alf said, we developed the idea in Australia and built the first prototype. And at the time, we had to sign a contract with Smiths. We were not allowed to sell to their competition, which is very hard because there was only 2 snack food manufacturers in Australia. So we had to look outside of Australia. But not only that, Australia's population is small. You know, we knew we could never sell, you know, the number of machines to become really successful. So we had to export. We did, and we started off in the UK by sharing an office actually at ANCA, who were one of our suppliers. And the Australian government, Export Finance, I think they're called now, they were very good in providing us with a loan for the export. What was it?
It was actually a grant.
A grant, sorry.
They gave us, it was $150,000. This is way back in 1987, 88, which is, it was a lot of money, and it was a grant they gave us. We had to put in, I think, the same amount of money. So between the two, we had 300,000, and then we went to the UK, set up the offices, and employed people.
But the challenges back then, 38, 40 years ago, was the first thing a potential customer said to me is, oh my goodness, Australia, that is so far away. And like, goodness, if I buy a machine from you and it breaks down, how long is it going to take to get parts? So that was, you know, a lot to overcome, and comments like, Australians can't come up with technology like this, aren't you into kangaroos and koalas? I almost slapped this potential customer at an exhibition. He was so rude. So that was, you know, hard to overcome at the start, but we did. We did by saying that if you buy the equipment, we will have spare parts in the UK. You don't have to worry. Yeah.
You mentioned ANCA a moment ago, and ANCA is a company much loved by a lot of people in this room, myself included, and
yes,
their CEO is fortunately going to be part of this event later on today. So I'd like to know a little bit about how, you know, the early days of your company and linking up with ANCA and them having a part of building your machines.
Sure. Do you want to?
Yeah. When we first come up with the idea of the machine is controlled, very specialized controls, computer numerical controls, CNC, robotics kind of controls. And I had been looking in America, Europe for suppliers of this equipment. I had never heard of ANCA. I didn't know of them. And I cannot remember how I found out about them. But I had been looking for months to get controls for our machine. And then I found ANCA, and it was like, bang. It just so accelerated everything that we did. You know, when you find somebody, an Australian company, they made fantastic gear. They built our first control system. We shoved it in the packaging machine. Had a few little technical issues here and there, some with the controls, some with software. It was more with software than the controls. We did the software. But once we got all of that going, this thing just went like a rocket. It was fantastic. But it truly, had it not been for us finding ANCA, it's like when you find somebody within your own country who can help you get there, and boy, did they help us. And we set up in their Birmingham office initially as well. So they not only helped us technologically, but they actually helped us kind of expand internationally.
So I'd like to hear about some other challenges from the early years, and I'm sure there are many. Could you just give us a sense of some of the issues that were involved, like perhaps there were some IP copycat issues from overseas competitors, obviously cash flow management and other challenges to do with expansion are going to be there. Tell me about some of the challenges early on.
We did a really good thing. We took out patents, and I thought, that's it, it's protected. Yeehaw. But it stopped nobody. And then what we discovered is now we have to sue them. So this whole process of suing 3 companies, big international companies, I mean massive companies.
We were tiny, like we were nobody, and they really thought they'll squash us.
We were this size. Yeah. And we started patent litigation. Primarily, the big one took off in the UK, and it was just a monster job, but it was massively exciting. I loved the whole thing, even though we were spending money like there were no tomorrows on lawyers. And it took 5.5, 6 years. We spent $6.5 million, and we won the case, and we won $8.5 million. And all I can say is it's not a good way to invest money.
But not only did we win, so we won the case, they appealed, we won the appeal, and they took it to the House of Lords. It was unbelievable. And
Well, it was quite good because I had to wear one of those wigs to go in.
stop it. Next question, Brent.
I want to hear more about the wig. So let's fast forward a little to 2010 and what looks like, an expansionary phase for the company, a lot of acquisitions, and going from a bagging company, so to be so plain about it, to a company that provides the entire line, the entire solution for food manufacturers.
Yeah. In the end, I can't remember every part, how we developed the whole plan, but we started off with just this beautiful little machine that went like a rocket, but it was immediately obvious that, we should expand this a bit and do the system. So then we developed the system, and it was so successful that then we started looking at the rest of the parts that make up the whole system. And so we just kept developing until now. By the way, some of that development, we also acquired some companies because we didn't want to develop everything from the ground up. It's like I would have been 150 by the time we finished. So we acquired 7 companies that in the end, our vision was we want to do total systems for the customer so that it just shows the floor space. We design, we do everything. The whole system, electronics, controls, software, SCADA, we do the lot. And the reason we wanted to do that, and it turned out to be a very good business plan, was when we were only doing parts of it, we continually ran into problems that actually were being caused by other bits of equipment, but we couldn't fix them. And it just caused so many problems for us that in the end it became obvious, God, why don't we just buy them, we'll buy them. And we ended up, we bought 7 companies, and now we do these massive systems that are worth tens of millions of dollars. And that was one of the good outcomes of it. Not only did it solve a lot of our issues, because we actually did. We're a bunch of engineers. There's hundreds of engineers in our company. This is what we do. And we solved, I'm not saying we solved every problem, but we really did just about solve every damn problem. You still have little ones, but they're little problems that take a day to fix, not 6 months. So we did all of that. And now we sell total systems globally.
The advantage for the customer, they're only dealing with one supplier, than having to. And not only that, the other reason we did it is our only competitor was providing processing and packaging equipment. So they'd go into countries overseas and they would reduce the price. So we only had packaging machines back then, right? They had more to play with and offer the customer than us. So they would increase the price of the processing and reduce the packaging so that they come out cheaper than us. So that was another advantage by us competing with them on processing and packages. Packaging gave us the advantage, and it was good for the customers because these others no longer had a monopoly on the equipment. They had us as well.
Right, so you've made all these acquisitions. You're now a big, nice-sized company with lots of arms and lots of markets. How did you approach staying, customer-focused and going across all these different markets and cultures and knowing what people wanted and how to give it to them and how to deal with them on a personal level, company level, etc.?
Yeah. So from the technology and innovation, that's Alf. When we're always sort of improving the technology, we're always pushing the boundaries. You know, at the start, a lot of people said to us, you will never succeed. This will never work. Do you really think you could do? Back then we said we'd do 100 bags a minute when they were doing like 40 or 50. And, you know, we did not believe them. We kept at it. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
It was about maintaining relationships.
Yeah, maintaining relationship, that's right. So it was very important for us to build strong relationship globally.
And I'm a very good relationship builder.
Oh, yes. He upsets the customers at times, then I've got to lift them off the floor, make them good again. Actually, I've got it's so embarrassing. So I've got to tell you this story quickly. So we wanted to be leaders in the world, right? So our first, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. We're at this big exhibition in Germany, and it was my first crack. We had this project happening in Egypt, and no customer in a country wants to be first to buy your equipment in case they don't work. And we had these potential customers. I was very excited. We hired this meeting room, and there was like, they brought 10 of their people, and there was 4 of us. And we started negotiating. And then they said they would pay X amount for the equipment, which was
50%.
Okay, I was going to get there. And he just stood up, and I won't tell you what he said. He told them off and walked out. And I was like so embarrassed. The ground could have opened up, and I wanted to bury myself. He had no idea how to deal with different cultures, especially the Middle Eastern people. And I'm Egyptian, by the way.
Especially Egyptians.
He's Scottish, don't you? There might be some other Egyptians. You keep it to yourself. And I said to him, you know what, Alf, you have to have a lot of patience to deal with the Middle East, like certain cultures, which he doesn't have. And if you want to be number one in the world, we have to sell in the Middle East. So it took me 2 years to get this customer around and tell her he didn't really mean what he said on the day. It was just a language barrier, you know. We really want to work with you, you know. And finally we did win a big project, and it's true, it did open the doors for us, and we have sold so many equipment in the Middle East, and actually won a very big project for over $30 million. That was our biggest 3 years ago. We've now tripled this, but one single project, over $30 million for the Egyptian army. So that was quite an achievement, providing a whole French fries line. The president came and had a look. I kept Alf away because I thought he'll crack a few jokes with him, like, you know. He saw them smoking the shisha, and he thought they were smoking marijuana. He almost had us imprisoned in Saudi. I'm not joking. Like, that's the kind of man he is. Sorry.
That's quite right. This is what people signed up to hear. I need to apologise. During your travels, you also had a visit to South Africa that led to your other passion, as I mentioned earlier, the foundation. Could you take us back and tell us about the origins of that?
Yeah, sure. So actually this is scaling up, and we feel by scaling up our business, we also scale up the impact we have with disadvantaged children. So when Alf and I met, one thing we had in common, we thought if we ever made money, we want to help the poorest of the poor kids around the world. And we've achieved that. So we're in South Africa visiting customers one time. And we were approached by a customer's wife to come to this school where they had 2 shipping containers where kids were being educated in. So they were cold in winter, hot in summer. And they asked us if we would, build their classrooms. That was our very first project.
Yep.
And both Alf and I said, yeah, sure. And we did. So we built the classrooms, the big hall, and we fed the kids like on a daily basis. That was our very first one. And actually, Oprah Winfrey was so impressed by our principal, she tried to steal her away when she built her girls' school in South Africa. And Miss Veronica was like, no, I'm staying with the Taylors, which was really nice. And anyway, so we've built numerous schools in Africa and then Latin America, Asia, India, Nepal. But we focus on education for kids, but we do a lot more also in healthcare, community services. It's quite a big portfolio now. And actually, I would like to also mention We have this enabling project that we started a couple of years ago that's very successful. And it's for individuals or small to medium-sized companies who would like to give, but one, they don't trust who the money will get to or don't have the resources to do the due diligence. We'll do all that for you free of charge and provide you with tax deductibility. I just wanted to add that in. But Alf, do you want to add something else about the kids? No. You love it, don't you?
We feed the little kiddies, we feed, clothe, and educate them. We're big on education. You've got to educate them. And some of the little children, when we started this 20 odd years ago, and some of the kiddies, when we started, were literally babies. And now several of them are at university. So you actually can see, we do this long term. We don't stop. So you can actually see the kids benefiting, and then some of them, they don't all go to university, but some of them end up at universities. We've had half a dozen of them go to university, and it's amazing watching the transformation.
Rewarding, isn't it? Yeah.
Wonderful. So one last question until we throw the microphones over to people on the floor. You're a technically sophisticated business-to-business kind of, I don't say it in a derogatory way, but kind of an unsexy type of business, but one that does something very important for other businesses. Do you think that's a model that Australian companies can find success in?
Definitely. Did you hear the question?
Our model, what we did, it was obvious to us that what's the population of Australia? 25 million. And what's the population of the world? I think it's about 8 billion. So, it's obvious, But I have to say, it's not that easy. Boy, do you find out problems, But in the end, if you're really dedicated and you want to do it, it is actually very achievable. One of the things that always truly impresses me, you talk about, but could I be successful with my products overseas? Just look at one thing. Starbucks. What are they selling? A cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? And they are absolutely global. So in the end, it doesn't have to be high-tech, super sophisticated gear. You can do this type of thing, but it does take determination. You've got to be willing and able to put up with things that don't work. I think one of the big things why we managed to succeed continuously was we had many failures. I don't like the word failures, but things that just did not work. And it's you never let that put you down. It's you learn something, and it's I've got to try and not do that again. And that's one of our big things was let's try and not make the same mistake twice.
Yes, Alf.
We haven't quite stuck to that, but we're getting there.
Wonderful. So to wrap up, I think time might permit a couple of questions from the audience. I don't know if we need to throw a microphone around given the intimacy of this room. If someone wants to put their hand up and get picked and yell something out, then I think we can do that. Alan.
Can I go back to the battle you had protecting your patents? With what you know now, would you go through that process again of opening and try and protect, or would you invest those funds in trying to stay ahead of the game rather than trying to protect what you've already got?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Because of the nature of the equipment that we developed was so unique, I would do the patents again. Even with the problems, I probably would do it a bit better this time, but I would still do the patents. Patents are massively powerful. In the whole of the West, it's it protects you. You still end up, people will copy you. But to me, it was massively expensive, but we would not be here. I guarantee you, TNA would not exist had we not taken out the patents.
And they last 25 years, which is great. Okay, we always have a bit of an argument, we're married only just, but yeah.
And anybody else? Paul?
Thanks, Brent. Thanks for your presentation this morning.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. And love to hear these stories of businesses growing from Australia. How important in those early years was that original grant money, seed funding, those types of things? How important was that And would you do that startup phase differently?
Was the grant from...
Yeah, how important was the grant?
It's always difficult looking back to see would we have done it without it. I think we probably would have gotten there, but there is no doubt whatsoever. That was a massive, it was like an amplifier. That got us there really quick. The problem, had they not been willing to do that for us, was somebody else would have copied the gear. It would have been copied. They were 10 times, 100 times the size of our company. They would have taken it, and once they've got it and they've established it in the marketplace, we would have been dead. So I don't have any doubt the EFA funding was absolutely instrumental in our long-term success. I have no doubt about that.
Not only that, they taught us what a business plan was. Like we started, we're only in it 3 years, you know. And remember, they said, have you got the business plan together? And we learned quickly how to do a business plan.
Yeah. Well, that was it. They said, have you got a business plan? And I think my answer was, yeah, I think we're going to be really good at this.
Alf, there's a couple of more questions. Please don't elaborate. Okay. Go ahead.
And lastly, everyone has an opinion, especially those who run a business, about government programs and what government can and should do to help manufacturers get to that next stage, as you guys have done. Do you have any sort of hobby horse issues with government support? Do you have any things that could be done better, or you have an opinion on that might be provocative or interesting?
It's always very difficult for governments. You know, they're trying to work out who should they invest in. And to be honest, like, it's bloody hard. Probably 9 out of 10 companies fail. So they don't know who to fund. But there is no doubt in my mind, I think EFA are doing a fantastic job. I think for the previous 15 or 20 years, it all died. They didn't exist. So they pretty well they weren't there. They were of no use to anybody. And then in the last 3 years, 4 or 5 years, and come back into it. I personally believe if Australia wants to succeed in manufacturing, and there's no reason why we can't, this is a fantastic place to do manufacturing, product development, high-tech gear. Doesn't have to be super high-tech. This is a brilliant place to do it. We've got highly educated people, fantastic infrastructure, everything works here. And I think the government has probably now recognised that they're going to invest. EFA are doing it now. Are they doing it right? I'm not an expert on that, but I think they've got the message, and I think hopefully everybody's worked out that Australia has to become a strong manufacturing centre. Yeah. And look at all of the people we've got just north of us, like hundreds of millions. It's like, guys, we're in the middle of this, kind of.
Thanks, Alf.
Well, I love a bit of preaching to the choir, because I don't think anyone would have shook their head at that. And I think that's a really good place to end. So it's been a real privilege having you guys on the stage. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.